So we have in front of us a map of America.
And we all know that visuals work great on radio.
Absolutely, that's why we're filming it as well.
Yeah.
Which you'll be able to see on the BBC Six Music website. See, that's plugging in advance for something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you kind of have to salute or something when you see the oh, that's the flag, isn't it?
You can do whatever you want. we're still ostensibly a free country.
So as a man that's kind of travelled a lot and whose music kind of touches base on lots of different influences, here's a panel pen. I want you to pick some cities that have influenced you and choose why. I bet I can guess a couple.
Los Angeles.
Why Los Angeles?
Because I especially like the early punk rock scene in Los Angeles was really inspiring to me. Like the Gun Club and X and the Germs. It was just, I mean, even later punk rock was still great from Los Angeles, but that early punk rock scene was just, I don't know, a huge inspiration for me.
Because
now, sorry to interrupt, but even and then going back even to like, you know, like Paul Rothchild and the Doors in the late '60s. I don't know how huge an inspiration that was for me, but it's what I grew up with, and I still, you know, I go back and listen to L.A. Woman, and it makes me want to build a time machine, go back to 1969.
It's funny because sort of LA now is just, you know, in the UK at least, you say LA, people think of hair metal and think of sort of Poison and Guns N' Roses. It's kind of a shame that some of that kind of more creative thing's been lost, I think.
Well, there are those two Penelope Spheres movies. There's Decline of Western Civilization and Decline of Western Civilization: The Metal Years, both of which took place in LA. But the first one really covers that early punk rock scene. And again, it's one of the, whenever I watch period-based music films, it makes me want to build that time machine. Like to go back to LA 80, 81, and to hang out with Jeffrey Lee Pierce and X and whomever. So
Okay,
another one.
panel pen number 2.
Let me think. Well, and I can put it on. Am I allowed to put it on New York? That's where I live.
I was actually surprised that you didn't go for that first, but yeah, go for it.
So there's New York.
Why New York? That's not exactly a difficult question.
Well, I was born in New York. I was born on 148th Street, and I've lived there most of my adult life. Well, actually, almost all of my adult life. And it really is. I mean, I don't want to sound immodest about my birth city, but it is such an amazing. I mean, like London or Paris, and that you have these relatively small places that have given birth to so much culture. When you look at the history, like the last 150 years in New York, and just the number of writers and artists and musicians who've either come from there or who've gone there to, like, you know, to work and almost retreat. So, I mean, everyone, you know, from George Gershwin to Marcel Duchamp to Stanley Kubrick to Miles Davis to John Coltrane to the Ramones to the New York Dolls to Public Enemy. I mean, like, especially what amazes me is New York from 1973 to 1978, how hip-hop and punk rock were born in this small place. You know, this tiny, tiny little place. It's a minuscule little island. And so much music and art and culture has come from there, so I'm proud to be a New Yorker.
Why do you think it's always been such a kind of hotbed for so much creativity?
I think one of the reasons that Manhattan in particular, I mean, all of New York City, but especially Manhattan, is because it's such an international place. I mean, it was, you know, it's surrounded by rivers, and it's right on the ocean, so it's always been sort of, you know, a non-American international city. And as a result, I mean, port cities like San Francisco, New York, London have always been very sort of like open, tolerant places, and people who don't fit in their hometown tend to move to London, or they move to New York, and they bring their creativity and their aspirations with them, and they end up creating great things.
Okay, that's very good. Want to have another panel pen?
Now that I've
lilac one.
Boy, I mean, I love lots of these places, but on a musical level, I mean, I guess the only thing sort of left. Okay, I'm so ignorant. I was looking for Chicago, and it's not on here. Isn't that funny? Because it's all state capitals, and Chicago's not. But then again, Manhattan and Los Angeles, see, it's all like
Yeah.
And
just stick it in the general area.
Yeah. So generally, I think it's there.
So Chicago, this has to be for the house thing.
Chicago for a few things. One, house music. Although it's strange because house music technically started in Chicago. Oh, there's a bug attacking me. And it did. I mean, I give them props for starting house music. But Frankie Knuckles had been a DJ in New York, and he sort of invented the house music in New York, and then moved to Chicago, and started DJing in a club called the Warehouse, and that's where the name house music came from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was called it was the type of music they played at the Warehouse, which became house music.
Because I've heard of obviously the Warehouse, but I didn't put two and two together.
So Chicago for the birth of house music, and also from when the blues became electrified, because they had I guess in the 19th century, early 20th century, a lot of country blues musicians down south, and then they moved north looking for work, and a lot of them went to Chicago, which is where like the John Lee Hookers and Muddy Waters and Howling Wolves came from, so the birth of electric blues as well.
I see. That's the kind of three that I thought you were going to choose.